My name is Amara Lee, and I am 26 years old. The night my piece left my house, it was raining. Not a soft, quiet rain, but a heavy one, loud against the windows, like the sky was trying to warn me. I stood in the living room, watching the street through the thin curtain, waiting for the car I already wished would never arrive. My hands were cold, even though the heater was on. My heart was loud, even though I wasn't moving. I wasn't waiting for a stranger. I was waiting for my husband's mother. Her name is Margaret. Everyone calls her Maggie. I used to call her Mrs. Lee in the beginning, when I was just the girl dating her son. Now, after 3 years of marriage, she said I should call her Mom. But the truth is, I never really felt like her daughter. I felt like a guest she only tolerated when her son was happy enough. My husband, Daniel, walked behind me and placed his hands on my shoulders. I felt his warmth, but it didn't reach the cold in my chest. "She'll be here soon," he said softly. "I know," I answered. He squeezed my shoulders gently. "Amara, we talked about this. She has nowhere else to go." "I know that too," I said, my voice small. We had the same talk 1,000 times in the last week. Daniel's mother had health problems. She was alone after selling her house. The plan that didn't work out. The friend who changed her mind. The savings that were not enough. Daniel told me all of that with worry in his eyes, his voice full of guilt, like he had abandoned his mother just by moving out years ago. "It's only for a while," he had said. "She just needs a place until things get better," he had said. "You and Mom will get closer," he had said. But my heart knew something he didn't. Some people don't move into your house, they move into your life. I turned to look at him. His blue eyes were tired, his hair still wet from the shower. He looked like the same man I fell in love with at the cafe where we met, when he spilled coffee on his shirt and laughed like nothing in the world could really hurt him. "Are you okay?" he asked. I lied. I nodded. "I'm fine." He leaned forward and kissed my forehead. "Thank you for doing this, Amara. I mean it. You're saving her." "You're saving us." I smiled, but it didn't feel real. I wasn't sure what I was saving. Our peace? Our marriage? Or only the image he had of himself as a good son? The sound of a car engine pulled both our eyes back to the window. Headlights stopped in front of the house. The shadows of boxes and shapes appeared behind the wet glass. "She's here," Daniel whispered. I felt my stomach turn. Something in me wanted to run upstairs, hide under the covers, and pretend I didn't hear anything. But I stayed. I stood beside my husband as he opened the front door and let the rain and the past walk into our home. The door opened with a soft click, and there she was. Margaret stood on the doorstep wearing a beige coat, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, her lips pressed together in a line that had forgotten how to be soft. Behind her, the taxi driver opened the trunk, revealing boxes, bags, and one old suitcase that looked like it had survived a war. "Mom," Daniel said, his face breaking into a smile that was all boy again. "You made it." She stepped in, letting him kiss her cheek. She patted his arm, but her eyes moved past him quickly, landing on me. They scanned me from head to toe like I was a piece of furniture that had been moved without her permission. "Hello, Amara," she said. "Hi, Mrs. Leah," I answered out of habit. Her eyebrow moved up, just a little. "Still Mrs. Leah," I forced a small smile. "Hi, Margaret." Her gaze held mine for a second longer, then shifted to the living room behind us. She looked around slowly, as if measuring the house in her head. The old wooden floors, the small couch, the little plant near the window, the blanket folded over the armrest. Pieces of a life Daniel and I had built together with love, small paychecks, and late-night TV. "So," she said, stepping further inside, "this is where my son lives now." Her tone wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It was something else. Something heavier. Daniel didn't seem to notice. "Let me help you with your things," he said, already heading out to get the boxes. I took a step to the side so she could come in fully. Water dripped from her umbrella onto the floor, making small dark circles on the wood. She closed it carefully and leaned it against the wall. "You didn't need to stand there waiting at the door," she said. "It's not like I can't ring the bell." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. I just wanted to welcome you." "For how long?" she asked, looking at me again. I blinked. "Sorry? How long will you welcome me?" she asked, her voice calm but sharp. A week? A month? Until I stop being convenient. The words cut deeper than I expected. That's not what this is, I said quietly. She gave me a small smile that didn't touch her eyes. We'll see. Daniel came back in with 2 boxes in his arms. Mom, your room is ready. Come on, I cleared the guest room for you. We put new sheets and everything. The one at the end of the hallway? She asked. Yes, he said happily. The one with the window to the backyard. She nodded, then glanced at me. Your idea or hers? Ours, Daniel said, still smiling. We prepared it together. That wasn't entirely true. I prepared it alone. I washed the sheets, changed the curtains, wiped the dust from every corner, and placed a small plant on the bedside table to make it feel alive. Daniel had worked late that day, but I didn't correct him. I just felt my throat tighten. Margaret walked past me, heading toward the hallway. The house suddenly felt smaller with her inside, like the walls had moved closer. I heard her footsteps on the wooden floor, slow but steady. Daniel put the boxes down, then turned to me with a hopeful look. See? It's going to be okay. I tried to smile again. Yeah, but I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince him or myself. We carried the rest of her things inside. There were more bags than I expected, more boxes, more pieces of her life that would now sit next to ours. A porcelain lamp, old photo frames wrapped in newspaper, a jewelry box, books with yellow pages, clothes that smelled like a closet that hadn't been opened in a long time. I set one box on our new bed and looked at the room again. It didn't feel like the guest room anymore. I felt like it belonged to her already, even though her coat was still hanging in the hallway. This'll be cozy, I said gently. She opened the box and began to take out her things without looking at me. I'm not here for cozy, she said. I'm here because life didn't give me more choices. I swallowed. I knew that feeling too well. Daniel clapped his hands once, trying to lighten the air. I'll order dinner, he said. Can celebrate your first night here. Celebrate? She said with a bitter chuckle. What are we celebrating, Daniel? That your mother lost her house and has to live with you now? His smile faded. Mom. I'm joking, she added quickly, though her eyes didn't match her words. Relax. Go order your famous takeout. I'll survive. He nodded and left the room, his shoulders a little lower. I stayed. I didn't know if I should help or leave her alone. My hands moved before my mind decided. Do you want help with your clothes? I asked. She folded a blouse and placed it in the drawer. I've been dressing myself for more years than you've been alive, dear. I think I can manage. The dear didn't feel sweet. It felt like a small pat on the head that pushed me down at the same time. I'll be in the kitchen, I said. Good, she replied. Maybe you can teach me how you keep my son fed with such a small fridge. I forced a small laugh, even though it hurt. We do fine. Do you? She asked. I left before I could answer. In the kitchen, I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. I tried to breathe in and out, slow, calm. I told myself she was tired, scared, hurt from losing her home. Anyone would be bitter. Anyone would be sharp. It was normal. It wasn't personal. But deep down, a small voice whispered something I didn't want to hear. It said this was only the beginning. That night, after dinner, Daniel fell asleep first on the couch while we watched something on TV that none of us were really paying attention to. Margaret sat on the armchair near the window, her eyes not on the screen but on every corner of the room, like she was inspecting a house she might buy or sell. At one point, she spoke without looking at me. Did you choose these curtains? She asked. Yes, I said. We found them together, actually. Daniel liked the color. They make the room look smaller, she said. I looked at them. I thought they made it feel warmer. She hummed, a small sound that could mean anything. My son always liked big spaces. He grew up in a house that breathed. This one feels like it's holding its breath. I pressed my lips together, feeling a sting in my chest. It's what we could afford. And you are proud of that? She asked. I didn't answer, because yes, I was. And in that moment, she made me feel like I shouldn't be. Daniel snored softly beside me, his head tilted to the side, his hand brushing mine. I looked at him and remembered all the late nights we spent counting coins in this same living room, making plans for rent, bills, small trips we postponed 100 times. We built this life together. It wasn't much, but it was ours. I wondered how long it would still feel like ours. Before going to bed, I went to the bathroom to wash my face. As I passed the guest room, I saw Margaret sitting on the bed with an old photo in her hand. The door was half open. I slowed down. The picture showed a younger version of her, with dark hair and a soft smile, standing next to a small boy, Daniel, maybe 9 or 10. His smile was big and bright, his arms around her waist. "You loved him more than anything back then," she said suddenly, and I realized she knew I was there. "I still do," I answered. She turned the photo slightly, looking at it from another angle. "Do you? Enough to share?" My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" She placed the photo back inside a drawer and closed it slowly. "You had him all to yourself for 3 years. Now it's my turn again. He's not a toy," I said quietly. She smiled, but it wasn't kind. To a mother, a son is never just a man. He's the one thing the world cannot take from her. She stood up and walked to the door. For a moment we were so close I could smell her perfume, something old and strong, like heavy flowers that had been kept in a box too long. "You look tired, Amara," she said. "It's been a long day," I replied. "It will be longer," she said softly. "Get some sleep. You'll need it." When I finally lay in bed next to Daniel, the house felt different. The walls seemed to listen. The air felt heavier. I turned to him, watching his calm face as he slept. I wanted to wake him up and tell him everything I was feeling, every small stab of discomfort, every cold edge in his mother's words. But he had waited for this moment for so long, to take care of his mother again, to make things right. So I stayed quiet. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. But a part of me stayed awake all night, listening to the new sounds of another person in our house. A door closing softly, footsteps in the hallway, water running in the bathroom, a cough, and my own heartbeat, asking a question I didn't want to answer. What if she didn't just move into our home? What if she was here to move me out of it? When the morning came and I walked into the kitchen, I found something small but sharp waiting for me. My favorite mug, the one Daniel gave me on our first anniversary, lay on the counter, broken, in 3 perfect pieces. Margaret was standing by the stove, making coffee. She didn't look surprised. "Oh," she said calmly, stirring the pot. "I think something fell when I opened the cupboard. You should be more careful with where you put things, dear." She smiled, but it didn't feel like an accident. And in that moment, I understood. My husband's mother had come home, and one broken mug at a time. She was already taking my piece. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at the 3 broken pieces of my mug, the one Daniel bought for me on a small trip we made to the lake on our first anniversary. It had a tiny drawing of 2 little boats on calm water and a sentence that said, "Where you are is my home." The mug was simple, cheap, just a souvenir. But to me, it meant more than half the furniture in this house. Margaret placed 2 cups on the table. Neither belonged to me. "Do you want coffee?" she asked, not looking up. I nodded slowly. "Sure." She poured the dark liquid like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just broken the first thing I cherished that morning. Like she hadn't taken the first small step into the life I built. Daniel walked in a minute later, rubbing his eyes, smelling like sleep and comfort. He kissed my cheek softly before pouring himself a cup. "Good morning, beautiful," he whispered. "Morning," I answered. He didn't notice the mug. Or maybe he didn't want to. Margaret sat down with an elegant, quiet posture, the kind of posture that told the whole room it had to adjust to her, not the other way around. "I cleaned the living room early," she said, stirring sugar into her cup. "It's amazing how much dust collects overnight." I blinked. "I cleaned yesterday." "Yes, I could tell," she said. "But your clean and my clean are different languages." Daniel laughed a little. "Mom, don't start," she smiled softly. "I'm just saying I can help. The house needs a mother's touch." My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. I stayed quiet. Silence was easier than fighting a battle she would enjoy winning. After breakfast, Daniel got ready for work. He kissed both of us before leaving, his smile warm, his heart light. He didn't feel the earthquake happening between the walls. Not yet. The moment the door closed, Margaret turned to me. "Do you work today?" "I'm off," I said. "I have a late shift tomorrow." "Good," she replied. "That means you have time to help me reorganize this house. I can't live in a place where nothing has order." I looked around the kitchen. Everything was organized, everything in place. But she wasn't talking about the house. She was talking about me. Still, I followed her into the living room. She stood in the center and looked around like a queen evaluating her new kingdom. "Move that table 2 inches to the right," she said. I did. "Now the couch," she added. "It blocks the light." I pushed the couch, even though we had placed it exactly where Daniel liked it, so he could watch the TV without the glare from the window. "Your curtains," she said next. "They need to go," I blinked. "Go? Where?" "Garbage," she replied bluntly. "They make the room too dark. This house needs light. Daniel likes light." "Those were his choice," I said softly. "He picked the color." She paused, just for a second. Something cold moved behind her eyes. "Well, she said he probably pretended to like them. He does that for you. He tries not to hurt your feelings." A sting spread through my chest. She kept going. "You know how men are," she continued. "They say one thing but feel another. I know my son better than anyone." She walked toward the window and touched the curtain like it was something infected. "I'll buy new ones," she said. "White, clean, something that actually fits a home." I swallowed. "These fit my home." She turned sharply. "Our home." My breath caught. "I'm living here now," she said. "What you call your home is not yours alone anymore. Things will change." I looked down at the floor and for a moment, the silence felt too loud, too heavy, too final. She softened her voice then, like sweetness could be used as a knife. "You'll understand soon, dear. Marriage is about family, about sacrifice. You married into mine, and I take family very seriously." My heart beat faster. Family. Sacrifice. Words that used to feel warm now felt like chains. "I didn't mean to upset you," I whispered. "Good," she said, "because there's no space for upset feelings in a house that must run well." I felt tears pressing behind my eyes, but I held them inside. I wouldn't cry in front of her. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Not yet. Later that morning, she followed me into the kitchen again. She opened cabinets, lifted plates, studied spices like she was inspecting the life I built with her son. "You cook with too much garlic," she commented. "You put plates in the wrong order. You buy cheap ingredients. You don't clean the oven well enough. This pan is scratched." Why did you let that happen? Every word was a small cut, a quiet injury, a drop of something poisonous. Around noon, Daniel called. "Hey baby," he said. "Everything okay there?" I looked at Margaret standing right behind me, her eyes on my face, waiting for my answer. "Everything's fine," I said quietly. "Good," he said. "Mom must be so happy to be with you." I forced a smile he couldn't see. "Yes, she is." When I hung up, Margaret placed a hand on my shoulder. Her fingers felt cold, heavy, final. "You see?" she whispered. "See what?" I asked. "How peaceful this home can be, when you and I understand our places." My heart tightened. And what place is mine? She smiled slowly. "We'll figure that out," she said. "But it won't be the head of the table." I stepped back, my breath shaky. She didn't blink. "Don't look so scared, dear." "I'm not scared," I whispered. "But I was." "You just lost your peace," she said gently. "Not your home." And she walked away as if she hadn't just said the truest and cruelest thing I had felt all morning. That night, something even worse happened. Something quiet. Something sharp. I went to bed early, exhausted from a day that didn't feel like mine. Daniel kissed my cheek and held me while I tried to breathe. But when I finally drifted into sleep, a sound pulled me awake again. A soft knock. At our bedroom door. I looked at Daniel. He was asleep. Another knock. Slow, steady, not urgent, but intentional. My chest tightened. I opened the door quietly. Maybe she needed something. Maybe she was sick. But the hallway was empty, silent. And on the floor, right under our door, lay one of my sweaters, the one I left folded in the drawer earlier, now torn. Torn straight down the middle. like someone didn't want me to wear it again, or didn't want me here at all. When I saw the sweater lying on the floor, torn down the middle like a wound, my breath caught in my throat. The hallway was dark, quiet, and still, but the air felt wrong, like something had been there seconds before I opened the door. I knelt slowly and picked up the fabric. My hands trembled. It was the soft blue one Daniel gave me last winter. I loved it. I wore it when I wanted to feel warm, wanted to feel held. Now it felt like someone had taken that warmth and split it apart with their own hands. I stood up and looked again down the hallway, listening for movement. Nothing. No steps. No sound of a door closing. No whisper. No breathing. Just silence. Heavy and cold. I turned back into the bedroom, closing the door quietly so I wouldn't wake Daniel. He slept like nothing had happened, like the house was peaceful, like nothing sharp was moving in the shadows. I put the torn sweater inside the closet, hiding it behind my dresses. I didn't want to start a fight in the middle of the night. Not when Daniel had waited years for his mother to be close again. Not when she had only been here one day. But my chest hurt as I lay down beside him. My mind wouldn't stop asking the same question. Why would she do that? When morning came, I walked into the kitchen quietly, hoping for a normal start to the day. The sun was soft through the window, the smell of toast in the air. Daniel was drinking coffee, his hair messy, eyes tired, still waking up. Margaret sat at the table with perfect posture, stirring her tea. "Good morning," I said softly. Daniel smiled. "Morning, love." Margaret lifted her eyes to me. "Sleep well?" I hesitated. "Not really." She took a sip of tea. Strange. I slept like a baby. Something in her tone made my stomach turn. She knew. I didn't know how, but she knew. Daniel looked between us, confused. "Is everything okay?" "Yes," Margaret answered before I could. "Just adjusting to new rhythms, that's all." I forced a smile, then walked to the cabinet to grab a plate. I froze. The cabinet door was open. The plates inside were rearranged. Not stacked like I always kept them, small plates first. Big plates below, but scattered, mixed, almost intentionally disordered, and the mug, my anniversary mug. The 3 broken pieces were gone. I looked around the counter. Nothing. Trash. Can. Nothing. Dishwasher. Empty. Sink. Clean. She didn't throw it away. She hid it. "Somewhere I wouldn't find easily. Looking for something, dear?" Margaret asked, her voice soft. I turned slowly. "No, just thinking." "Oh," she said, smiling faintly. "You do that a lot." Daniel didn't notice the tension. He was putting on his jacket already. "I'll be home early today. Maybe we can all have dinner together." "That sounds lovely," Margaret said. She looked at me. "It will be good for us." Daniel kissed my cheeks, then left for work. The door closed. The silence left behind felt different, sharp, like the quiet breath before something breaks. Margaret stood up and began walking toward the living room. I followed her. "Was something wrong last night?" I asked, trying to sound calm. She shrugged lightly. "Not at all." I swallowed. Because I found... Before I could finish, she stopped walking, turned slowly, and looked straight at me. Her expression wasn't angry. It wasn't even cold. It was amused. "Amara," she said softly, "a house reveals things about its owners. Behaviors, patterns, weaknesses." My heart beat louder. "What does that mean?" She stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. "It means you need to be stronger if you want to keep this marriage peaceful." The words hit me like falling glass. I blinked, confused and hurt. "What did I do?" "You let little things bother you," she said. A broken cup. A moved chair. A missing sweater. My breath stopped. She said it. She said the things she should not know. My sweater. She knew. She smiled again, slow, thin, precise. "When you live with family," she said, "you must learn not to be so emotional about objects." "It wasn't about the sweater," I whispered. "Then what was it about?" she asked. Not curious. Not innocent. Testing. It felt like someone... I stopped, swallowing hard. Someone touched my things. Her lips curled slightly. That's what happens when people live together. There are no my things anymore, only ours. But it was torn, I whispered. She nodded once, a slow nod. Accidents happen, dear. Especially in closets full of clothes. Threads get caught. Fabric weakens. My voice trembled. It wasn't an accident. She leaned forward, her perfume strong, head tilted. Are you accusing me? The words were soft, but they felt like knives. No, I said quickly, even though yes, I was. She stepped past me, brushing my shoulder lightly with her hand, a cold touch that felt more like a claim than affection. Good, she whispered, because that would be a very ugly way to start our life together. Life together, not visit, not temporary stay. Life. I watched her walk back to the kitchen, open a cabinet, and place her teacup inside, right beside the empty space where my mug used to be. She was not staying for a while. She was settling in, rooting herself, digging, rearranging, claiming, and I understood something I didn't want to understand. She wasn't here because life gave her no choice. She was here because she wanted to be here, because she wanted a life back that she felt she lost, a place back she believed was hers, and she wasn't afraid to take it, piece by piece, morning by morning, word by word. Amara? She called from the kitchen. Yes? You should clean the balcony today. The plants look sad. I think they need someone who knows how to take care of things properly. My throat tightened. She wasn't talking about the plants. I walked outside to the small balcony. The wind was cold, the air heavy with clouds that threatened rain again. I looked at the plants I had cared for since our first year here, leaves soft, not sad, growing just fine. But in the corner, under the small table, something caught my eye. A piece of blue thread, the same color as my sweater, dropped, carelessly, like a trophy someone forgot to hide. My vision blurred for a moment, and I took a deep breath. This wasn't about her losing her home. This wasn't about health problems. This wasn't about needing help. This was about power. And I was losing it slowly, softly, one shredded thread at a time. I picked up the blue thread with shaking fingers. Behind me, Margaret's voice floated through the doorway. Be careful with the plants, dear. I looked down at the small victims of her newest game, and something inside me whispered, this is only the beginning. When I came back inside from the balcony, the blue thread still in my hand, Margaret was sitting on the couch like she owned it. Her back was straight, legs crossed, fingers resting gently on the armrest. She looked peaceful, too peaceful, as if nothing in the world could shake her. But something in the room had changed. I felt it the moment I stepped in. The air, the silence, the way she watched me walk. Did you finish outside? She asked without looking away. Yes, I answered quietly. The plants are fine. She murmured. For now. I didn't respond. I walked toward the kitchen, trying to escape the weight of her eyes. But just as I reached the counter, something pulled my attention sharply. My wedding photo. The one Daniel and I kept on the small shelf above the table. It had been moved, not far, just shifted an inch to the right. Barely noticeable unless you were the one looking for it every morning, but that wasn't what made my breath falter. The person who moved it had touched the glass. Her fingerprint was still there, pressed right on Daniel's face. A soft, round fingerprint, too small to be Daniel's, too thin to be mine. I looked slowly over my shoulder. Margaret was still on the couch, but her eyes were not on the TV. They were on me, on my hands, on the photo. I placed the frame back exactly where it belonged, wiping the glass with my sleeve. She smiled faintly, not warmly, not kindly, not innocently, a smile that said, I see you, I know you saw, and I don't mind. I walked past her, heading toward the laundry room. I needed a minute, just 1 minute without her breath on my skin, without her presence filling the house like a thick fog. As I opened the door to the laundry room, another shock hit me. My folded towels were not where I left them. They were rearranged again. Not messy, no. Neat. Too neat. Perfect, sharp, like she had refolded each one with quiet precision. but intentionally left one corner slightly bent, just enough for me to know someone else's hands had been on them. "Did you wash today already?" she asked from behind me. I jumped. I hadn't heard her walk. Her steps were too soft, too controlled. "No," I said, turning slowly. "I was just checking," she finished for me. I swallowed. "Yes." She stepped further into the room, her gaze wandering over the shelves, the detergent bottles, the small basket of clothespins. "When I moved into my first home," she said, her voice soft and nostalgic, "I wanted everything in its place. Order creates peace." I nodded politely. "Yes, it does. But here," she continued, turning back to me, "there is no order yet. Not real order." My heart tightened. "I try to keep the house clean." "Oh, I know," she said, "but cleaning is not the same as caring." I felt those words slice into me, sharp, precise, measured. "I care a lot," I whispered. She tilted her head. "Do you?" I nodded slowly. "Then show me," she said. My breath caught. "Show you what?" "Show me that you can keep a home," she said gently. "My son needs a woman who can give him peace." "I do give him peace," I said. "We've built a good life together." She stepped closer, too close. Her perfume filled the air, heavy and suffocating. "You built a beginning," she said, "not a life." I opened my mouth to speak, but she placed a hand on my arm, light, but firm enough to silence me. "You are young," she continued softly. "You think love is enough. But love doesn't last if the home is weak." I felt my throat tighten. "Daniel and I are strong." "'Cause he tries," she said simply, "not because you do." The ground under me shifted, like the floor itself had pulled away. "You don't know anything about me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, Amara," she said with a small, sad smile. "I know everything I need to." I forced myself to breathe in, out, calm. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. "Respect," she said. "Order, silence, and loyalty to this family." I took a small step back. "I am loyal." "Then prove it," she replied. "Stop questioning every little thing. Stop looking at me like I am your enemy." I froze. She had noticed. She had seen the fear in me, and she enjoyed it. "I'm not looking at you like that," I said. "Good," she whispered, "because houses have energy. Women can feel when they are not welcome." My breath trembled. "Are you saying I'm not welcome?" "Not at all," she said, "but you should try harder to be." I didn't know what hurt more, the words or how calmly she said them. After that, she walked back to the living room like nothing had happened. I stayed in the laundry room, breathing fast, pressing my fingers into my palms until they hurt. The house felt smaller again, tighter, like walls had moved 1 inch closer, then another. After lunch, Daniel called again. "How are you two getting along?" he asked. I hesitated. Margaret was sitting at the table right beside me. "We're fine," I whispered. "That's great," he said, relieved. "Mom told me she really appreciates your help." I closed my eyes. She'd already spoken to him, shaped the story, painted the picture she wanted. "That's good," I said softly. "Love you," Daniel whispered. "Love you too." When I hung up, Margaret leaned back in her chair. "You see?" she said. "Peace." But it didn't feel like peace. It felt like quiet control, a slow takeover, a shadow forming in corners I used to fill with laughter. The afternoon passed with another small storm, this time in the bedroom. When I went to make the bed, I saw my pillow moved to the opposite side. My book was now under the nightstand. My slippers were turned the wrong way. All small things, all quiet, all intentional. By evening, I felt exhausted in a way I didn't recognize, not physical but emotional. Like someone had been pushing on my chest all day with a cold, patient hand. Daniel came home smiling, excited for dinner. He kissed me like everything was normal. Margaret cooked for us. She said she wanted to help. Daniel loved it. He complimented her, he thanked her, he enjoyed every bite. And she watched me the whole time. Not him, me. Waiting for my reaction, measuring it, weighing it. At night, after Daniel fell asleep again, I walked down the hallway for water. The door to her room was slightly open, enough for me to see her silhouette. She wasn't sleeping. She wasn't lying down, she was sitting, back straight, hands folded. facing the door. Facing me. Watching. My breath caught. I froze. She didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't move, just watched. Like she was waiting for something. Someone. Me. I stepped back slowly, heart racing. I walked quietly to the kitchen, took a glass of water I didn't need, waited 5 minutes, then walked back to my bedroom. Her door was closed now. Silent. Dark. But the feeling stayed. The feeling that she saw me. All of me. More than anyone ever had. And the feeling that I was slowly disappearing inside a house that wasn't mine anymore. A house that felt less like home every hour. A house where my husband slept peacefully, and his mother watched me through half-open doors. I woke up the next morning feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My eyes burned, my chest felt tight, and my stomach was turning before I even sat up. Daniel was already getting dressed for work, humming softly, completely unaware of the storm growing inside the house. "Morning, love," he said, leaning down to kiss my forehead. "Morning," I whispered. He didn't notice how hollow my voice sounded. Or maybe he did, but he chose to interpret it as sleepiness. "We should do something special this weekend," he said while buttoning his shirt. "Mom can come with us if she's feeling better. Maybe a brunch somewhere nice." My heart dropped. A weekend with her. Another day pretending nothing was wrong. "Sure," I said, even though everything in me said no. He smiled, kissed my cheek again, then left the room. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing slowly, trying to prepare myself for another day of whatever she planned. When I walked into the kitchen, Margaret was already there. Fresh makeup, hair perfectly brushed, teacup in her hand. She looked like she hadn't aged one more day while I felt like I had aged 5 overnight. "Good morning, Amara," she said, her tone smooth, polite, almost sweet. "Morning," I said softly. Her eyes scanned my face. "You look tired." I held onto the counter. "Didn't sleep well." "Strange," she said. "This house used to be so peaceful." A quiet sentence. A sharp knife. I swallowed and made my breakfast in silence. Or tried to. Because when I opened the drawer to grab a spoon, the spoons weren't there. Neither were the forks. The entire silverware tray was rearranged, spoons where knives should be, forks mixed with smaller pieces, nothing where it belonged. Margaret didn't turn around, but her voice filled the air. "You need to learn to organize better. Daniel likes order." I clenched my jaw. He never complained. She sipped her tea. "He wouldn't. He is too kind." I closed the drawer quietly. "I know my husband. Do you?" she asked gently. "Or do you only know the man he became with you?" Her words felt like a cold hand gripping my throat. "People change when they get married," she said. "But not always for the better." I took a breath. "I'm trying very hard, Margaret." She turned then, her gaze meeting mine. "Yes," she said softly. "Trying. But effort is not always enough." My chest tightened. "Are you saying I'm not good for him?" She tilted her head slightly. "I'm saying my son deserves the best. And I'm not?" "I didn't say that." She smiled, but I didn't deny it either. I felt a sting in my eyes, tears pushing up, begging to fall. I blinked them away. She stood, placing her empty cup in the sink, then walked past me as if she hadn't just cut my heart open. "Clean the kitchen before you go to work," she said. "It's messy." It wasn't. It was spotless. I had cleaned it last night, but she wanted it cleaner. Or maybe she wanted something else, power, control, proof that she could bend me until I broke. After Daniel left, she filled every hour with small demands. Wipe the windows. The towels smell strange. The trash should be taken out sooner. Daniel's shirts are wrinkled. You're using too much detergent. You shouldn't cook pasta so often. Each sentence was small, normal, even logical if said kindly. But she said them all with that same tone, the tone that said, "You are not enough." At lunchtime, she sat at the table and watched me prepare food, watched every movement of my hands, saw every mistake that wasn't even a mistake. "You cut onions wrong," she murmured. "I've always cut them like this." "Yes," she said, "I can tell." I set the knife down slowly. "Margaret, I'm trying." She folded her hands elegantly. "Trying is for beginners, dear." I felt my heart sink. What do you want me to do? She smiled, a slow, cold, pitying smile. I want you to listen. And stop thinking you know my son better than I do. I looked at her, stunned. Daniel is my husband, and he is my son, she replied. My blood, my life, my history, my everything. I stepped back. You're making this difficult. She stood up suddenly, her voice calm, but her eyes dark. You don't understand yet, she whispered. But you will. I felt chills run down my spine. Understand what? That you are temporary. My lungs froze. She walked closer, stopping right in front of me. Her perfume wrapped around me like smoke. Women come and go, she said, but mothers stay. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. As long as I live, she whispered, Daniel will never truly belong to you, and he never did. My heart cracked, right there in that kitchen. Between the smell of onions and boiling water, I pushed past her, needing air, needing space, needing anything that wasn't her. I went to the bedroom and closed the door gently. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of hearing it slam. Inside, I sat on the edge of the bed. My hands shook, my breath shook. I felt myself shrinking inside a life that used to feel safe. I grabbed my phone and thought about calling Daniel, telling him everything, every word, every look, every quiet cruelty. But he was at work, busy, tired, trying to balance everything. And she had already planted her seeds in him, already shaped the story, already made herself the sweet, helpless mother who needed love. I put the phone down and cried quietly. That afternoon, she knocked on the bedroom door. Not loudly, softly, rhythmically. Patiently, I wiped my tears and opened it. She held one of Daniel's shirts in her hands. You folded this wrong, she said. I swallowed. I'll refold it. She gave it to me slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. And don't forget, she said softly. What? I whispered. Peace can be taken, she said, just as easily as it can be given. And she walked away. That evening, Daniel came home with flowers, for her, not for me. Mom had a hard day, he said. I wanted to make her smile. I felt something inside me fall apart. A small piece, but deep. He hugged her. She hugged him back. And looked at me while she did it, over his shoulder, eyes calm, cold, satisfied. When we went to bed that night, Daniel fell asleep again within minutes. And once again, I couldn't. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my eyes burning, my heart heavy, my breath unsteady. Around midnight, I heard it. A soft sound, like a drawer opening, then another, then footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving toward our room. I sat up, breath caught in my chest. The footsteps stopped right outside our door. Then, a whisper. Soft, female, clear, but not her voice. Not Margaret's. A different voice. Trembling, young, afraid. Don't let her in. The whisper disappeared, and the door handle moved. The door handle moved only a fraction of an inch, but it was enough to make my whole body freeze. I held my breath, staring at the small silver knob like it was alive. The house was silent, too silent except for Daniel's soft, steady breathing beside me. I leaned forward slowly, the mattress dipping under my weight. My heart was beating loud enough for me to hear it in my ears. Then, the handle moved again, a slow, testing turn, like someone wanted to see if I was awake, or if they could come in. My whisper trembled before I could stop it. Daniel. He didn't move, didn't open his eyes, didn't hear anything. The handle stopped turning. Silence filled the room. Heavy, thick. I stood, one foot touching the cold floor, praying it wouldn't creak. I took a step toward the door, another. My hands were shaking so badly I had to hide them behind my back. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. No breath, no whisper, no footsteps. But I felt something. A presence. A coldness. A stillness that did not belong to this house. I swallowed hard and opened the door quickly before my fear could stop me. The hallway was empty, completely still. Dim light from the night lamp painted long shadows on the wall. But something wasn't right. The rug in front of the bedroom door, was slightly out of place, like someone had been standing there for a long time. I stepped into the hallway slowly. My breath made a small cloud in the cold air that shouldn't be that cold inside a house with the heater running. I whispered, "Hello?" I don't know why. Maybe to feel less alone. Maybe to convince myself I wasn't hearing things. No answer. I walked a few steps, looking toward Margaret's room. Her door was closed. Her light was off. Her room was quiet. I looked toward the living room. Dark. Still. Nothing moved. My heart beat faster. My skin felt tight. I was turning to go back inside when I felt it. A breeze. Just a small one. Cold. Sudden. It brushed the back of my neck like fingers. I gasped and turned around quickly. No one was behind me. But the breeze hadn't come from nowhere. It came from. I looked up. At the attic door. Slightly open. A tiny crack. Barely visible. But big enough to let out cold air. And something else. Fear. Old fear. Stepped back. My shoulder hit the bedroom door. The house seemed to breathe in the silence. Then, from inside the attic, I heard it. A small thump, like something was dropped, or someone moved. I backed into the bedroom and closed the door fast. Locked it. For the first time since I moved here. I got back into bed slowly and forced my breathing to calm down. Daniel shifted next to me, half awake. "Amara?" he mumbled. "Everything okay?" I didn't want to scare him. Not at midnight, not when he was exhausted. "I'm fine," I whispered. "Go back to sleep." He kissed my shoulder, then drifted off again. But I didn't sleep. Not even for a second. The cold whisper echoed in my mind again and again. "Don't let her in." Not, "Don't let Margaret in." Not, "Don't open the door." Just her. A faceless warning. A voice that didn't belong to the living. In the morning, sunlight entered through the curtains, warm and soft, but I still felt cold. My bones felt cold. Daniel kissed my cheek before leaving for work. Margaret watched us from the kitchen doorway, her eyes unreadable. "Did you sleep well?" she asked as I walked in. "No," I admitted. "Not really." She nodded slowly. "Sometimes this house makes strange noises at night." My heart stopped. "Have you heard them too?" She tilted her head. "I've heard many things in my life." That didn't answer anything. It only made it worse. I made coffee with trembling hands. The smell made me nauseous. When I reached for the sugar, Margaret spoke again, her tone light. Too light. "You shouldn't go near the attic," she said. I froze. The spoon hovered above the mug. "Why?" I whispered. She shrugged. "No reason. It's old. Dusty. Unsafe. You don't belong up there." My throat tightened. "Have you been up there?" Her eyes met mine. Cold, sharp, aware. "Not everything in this house is yours to question, dear." A chill ran down my back. She walked away, humming softly, as if she hadn't just said something terrifying. Later that morning, she asked me to go to the store. A simple request. Normal. I took the keys, my coat, my bag. I walked outside, grateful to breathe air that didn't smell like tension. But when I came back, when I opened the door, Margaret was standing at the top of the stairs. Perfect posture. Hands clasped, looking down at me with a faint smile. And behind her, the attic door, fully closed now. No crack, no breeze, no sign it had ever been open. "Did you buy everything?" she asked. "Yes," I said, stepping inside. "Good," she replied. "Some things in this house must stay. Sealed." My stomach dropped. She wasn't talking about groceries. I walked to the kitchen and placed the bags on the counter. My hand shook so badly a jar almost fell. Margaret walked in quietly, her steps light. She opened the fridge, put something away and said, "You look pale, Amara." "I'm fine," I whispered. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You shouldn't wander the house at night." My heart thundered in my chest. I wasn't wandering. Her eyes glimmered. A silent, terrible confirmation. "I know," she said. "I saw your door open." My breath vanished. My fingers went numb. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. She placed a gentle hand on mine, a soft, cold touch that felt like ownership, and whispered, "Next time, don't open it." The moment she said "next time, don't open it," something inside me broke in a quiet, trembling way. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Her hand stayed on mine for a second too long before she pulled away, leaving a cold echo on my skin. That day felt heavier than the others. The house felt quieter. Margaret felt closer. Everything she said, every look she gave, every silence between us felt planned, placed, positioned, like pieces on a board I never agreed to play on. By noon, she was in the living room reading a book, her glasses low on her nose. She looked calm, too calm, like she hadn't whispered something that had kept my heart racing for hours. I tried to keep myself busy. I cleaned, I folded clothes, I swept the hallway twice. But the whole time I kept glancing toward the attic door as if it could hear me thinking. As if she could hear me thinking. At one point, Margaret spoke without lifting her head from her book. "There's dust on the dresser." "I cleaned it earlier," I said. "Then you didn't clean it well." I swallowed and stood there for a moment, feeling that soft, creeping helplessness she always brought with her. "Daniel is lucky," she said, turning a page. "He doesn't see the flaws in the women he loves." The words hit harder than she probably guessed. Or maybe she guessed exactly what they would do. "Margaret," I whispered, "why do you say things like that?" She looked up then, slowly, her eyes not cold this time, but amused. "I speak the truth," she said. "If you can't handle it, that's your weakness, not mine." I tried to breathe through the sting. I failed. "Daniel loves me," I whispered. Her lips curled. "Yes," she agreed calmly. "Men often love women who leave them." The sentence cut so deep I took a step back. "What does that mean?" "You'll understand," she said. "One day." Before I could ask again, the front door opened. Daniel walked inside, smiling, holding a box of pastries. "Look what I found," he said, full of warmth, hugging Margaret first. He hugged her first. Not me. She kissed his cheek and called him darling. He kissed her cheek and laughed. Then he turned to me. "Hey, love," he said. "I missed you." I smiled, but it felt tight, forced. We all sat for tea and pastries. Margaret told stories. Daniel laughed. I felt like a ghost sitting between them. When I tried to speak, Margaret spoke louder. When I laughed, she stared. When Daniel reached for my hand, she looked away like she couldn't stand the sight of it. At one point, Daniel excused himself to get something from the bedroom. The moment he left the room, Margaret leaned forward, slow, deliberate. "You're fading," she whispered. I froze. "What?" "Piece by piece," she said softly. "You're fading from this house, from Daniel, from your place here." My throat tightened. "You're wrong." She sat back and sipped her tea. "I'm patient," she replied. "I don't need to be right now." Daniel returned seconds later, cheerful again. Margaret's smile transformed instantly. Warm, sweet, motherly. She changed masks faster than I could breathe. That night, after dinner, Daniel suggested we watch a movie. Margaret agreed, and then suggested the one she knew he loved since childhood. Of course. We sat on the couch, Daniel between us. He rested his arm behind me, but Margaret leaned against his shoulder. Too close, too comfortably. Like she had waited years for this position. Daniel didn't notice, or pretended not to. Halfway through the movie, Margaret stood and stretched. "I'm getting tired," she said softly. "You two enjoy the rest." She walked toward the hallway slowly, and before turning the corner, she glanced at me over her shoulder. A small, knowing glance. A warning, a claim. Daniel kissed my cheek and kept watching. I tried to follow the movie, but all I could feel was her eyes, the memory of them, watching me from the dark. Later, when we went to bed, I lay awake again, listening, waiting. Around midnight, the house creaked. Not like wood settling, more like footsteps. Slow, careful, deliberate. I sat up. The sound was coming from the hallway. "Daniel," I whispered. He didn't wake. The footsteps continued. Stopping near our door, I stood and tiptoed toward it, heart in my throat. My hand shook as I reached for the knob. I opened it slowly. The hallway was dim. The night lamp cast a weak glow across the floor. And Margaret. Margaret was standing at the opposite end of the hallway, still facing me, her posture perfect, her hands folded in front of her. She wasn't wearing a nightgown. She was fully dressed, like she hadn't slept at all. "Margaret?" I whispered. She didn't answer, didn't move, just watched me. In that cold, heavy silence. I stepped into the hallway. Is everything okay?" She tilted her head slightly, her eyes never leaving mine. You shouldn't open your door at night, she whispered. My breath stopped. You told me to open it for you? No, she said. I told you not to let her in. A chill ran down my spine. That wasn't your voice, I whispered. Margaret smiled slowly. I know, she said. My knees weakened. What do you mean, you know? She took one slow step toward me, then another. I'm not the only woman in this house who doesn't sleep. My blood turned cold. Margaret, what are you saying? She closed the remaining distance with 2 soft steps until she was standing just inches away. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. This house remembers, she whispered. I swallowed hard. Remembers what? Her, Margaret said. My chest tightened. Who is her? Margaret lifted her hand and placed 2 fingers under my chin, guiding my gaze to the ceiling, toward the attic. She lived here before me, Margaret said softly. And before you. My breath caught. She wasn't a good wife, Margaret continued. Daniel loved her too easily. I felt my world tilt. Daniel had a wife before me? Margaret smiled. A slow, cruel smile. She died, she whispered. Right above us. My knees went weak. And she, Margaret added, her breath cold on my skin, hates when someone takes her place. Margaret's words echoed inside me like a cold bell. She died. Right above us. I felt the air leave my lungs. My hands trembled. The hallway around us seemed to shrink, tightening like a throat. Daniel never told me, I whispered. Of course he didn't, Margaret said, lowering her hand from my chin. He doesn't like to remember painful things. And she was painfully forgettable. I stepped back, heartbeat wild. You're lying. Her expression didn't change. You believe that because it makes you feel safer. My voice cracked. Why would he hide something like that from me? Because he loved you quickly, she replied, and he married you even quicker. I stared at her, searching her eyes for any sign, any hint that she was twisting the truth, exaggerating, or simply trying to hurt me. But her face remained calm, almost gentle. That attic, she said quietly, used to be their room. My breath froze in my chest. What? She preferred the small space. Said it made her feel like the world couldn't touch her. Margaret shook her head slowly, but the world touched her anyway. A chill ran down my spine. Margaret, what happened to her? You should ask Daniel, she answered, but he won't tell you. Why not? Because he blames himself. She paused, and because he knows she never left. My knees felt weak. Stop, I whispered. You hurt her, Margaret continued softly. She spoke to you. No, that voice wasn't mine. She leaned closer, and you know it. My breath trembled. She was right. The whisper I heard the night before wasn't her tone, her rhythm, her age. But why would she? Why would she warn me? I asked. Margaret smiled faintly. She wasn't warning you. I felt the floor tilt. What do you mean? She was telling you the truth. Margaret stepped closer. That you shouldn't open the door. For anyone. My heart hammered. This is insane. You think I'm playing with you? She whispered, her voice suddenly sharp. You think I tear sweaters and move pillows because I'm bored? My mouth opened, but I couldn't form words. I'm trying to protect this home, she said. Protect my son. Protect what's left of the life he had before you. The hallway grew colder. Not air conditioner cold. Something else. Something older. What happened to his first wife? I asked again. Margaret didn't blink. She couldn't handle this house. The answer made my chest tighten. What does that mean? She heard things, saw things, became fragile. My voice trembled. And then? She opened the attic window, Margaret said simply, and decided not to stay. My knees almost buckled. I grabbed the wall to steady myself. Cold, too cold. You're lying, I whispered again, weaker this time. She tilted her head. Go look then. I froze. What? Go to the attic, she said softly. If you think I'm lying, go. I took a step back. No. Her smile widened, satisfied. Exactly. You're afraid. I'm not. You are, she said. And you're right to be. I felt tears burn behind my eyes. Margaret, why are you doing this to me? Her expression softened unexpectedly, almost tender. Because I don't want to lose my son again. I stared at her. Again? She nodded. When she died, Daniel broke. He shut himself away. Didn't smile. Didn't laugh. Didn't live. Her voice grew tight. I brought him back, piece by piece. And then you came, and suddenly he didn't need me. My eyes filled with tears. That's not true. It is true, she said. And I will not watch him vanish into grief again. But I'm not her, I argued. I'm not going to hurt him. Her eyes narrowed. You already have. My breath froze. How? By waking her. Silence swallowed the hallway. My legs felt weak, my stomach hollow. I didn't wake anyone, I whispered. You opened the door. That wasn't... You opened the door, she repeated, voice low. And something saw you. My skin prickled with cold. And once she sees you, Margaret said, she doesn't stop. I shook my head, backing toward the bedroom. No, this is insane. You're trying to scare me. Yes, she said plainly. Because you need to be scared. I reached the bedroom door. My hand shook on the knob. Margaret, please, stop. She stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. No, you need to understand something, Amara. I swallowed hard. What? When Daniel loves someone, she whispered, this house fights back. A tear slipped down my cheek. Why are you telling me this? So you can choose, she said. Leave, or stay, and disappear. I shook my head. He loves me. Yes, she said softly, and that's exactly why she hates you. I felt my breath break. Then Margaret did something I didn't expect. She reached out and touched my face. A mother's touch, soft, gentle, terrifying. You're a sweet girl, she said quietly, but you don't belong here. I stepped inside the bedroom and closed the door between us. Her last words drifted through the wood, soft, almost sad. Don't open the door tonight. I leaned against it, breathing hard, trying to calm the tremor in my hands, trying to understand how everything had spun so far out of control. Daniel slept. The house creaked. The hallway felt alive. And somewhere above us, something moved. Just one soft step. Right above the bed. Before I continue a historia, preciso es confirmer uma coisa, rapida para voca queer, a part 5a, intera de uma vez. Unico bloco longo. Continue. Com mais de 60 linhas. Sem interrupts. Ou voca
Sem
pauses
ela
e
dividida
segundo
em
para
duas
o.
partes,
Despecho
5A e 5B.
completo? Mesmo sabendo que voca pediu originalmente apenas 5A. Es preciso dessa confirmaco para manter tudo 100% dentro do formato que voca determinou. Responda apenas. 5A intera ou pode dividir. Voca dias.
I knew the
5A
sound
intera
came from
e
the
now
attic
before my
before
mind could admit it.
Chat
A soft
GPT
step.
DS.
A small
Chat
shift of weight.
GPT rotarista.
Right above our bed, like someone was pacing slowly in a space too small for walking. Daniel slept on his side, his breathing calm, his arm resting over my waist like nothing in the world could touch us. But something was touching us. Touching the house, touching the air. My heart thudded in my chest. I sat up carefully so I wouldn't wake him, the moonlight carving gentle lines across his peaceful face. How could he sleep through this? How could he not feel the cold pressing on the room, the breath of something unseen brushing the edges of the dark? Another step. A smaller one, like a bare foot brushing old wooden boards. I covered my mouth to hold back a cry. I didn't want Daniel to see me like this, afraid, shaking, confused. But mostly I didn't want him to wake up and see whatever might be standing above us. I slowly put my feet on the floor. The rug felt colder than usual. Not winter cold, attic cold, closed room cold, forgotten cold. As I stood, Daniel stirred slightly but didn't wake. I thought about holding him. I thought about shaking him awake. But then I remembered Margaret's voice. Don't open the door tonight. And I realized she didn't mean the bedroom door. She meant the other one, the attic door. The house ground softly, as if reacting to my thoughts. I could almost feel eyes following me from the ceiling. I walked to the hallway, opening the bedroom door as quietly as I could. The hallway was dim, washed in a pale blue glow from the nightlight. Still. Too still. Then I looked up. The attic door was half open. Not wide enough to see inside, just enough to show darkness. Deep darkness. A darkness that felt like it was staring back. My chest tightened, my fingers went numb. "Stop," I whispered to myself. "Just stop." But I couldn't move. The darkness pulled my gaze, swallowing everything else. Then, a whisper. Not behind me. Not inside the attic. Inside my ear. Close, fragile, desperate. "Run." My knees weakened. My breath broke. I grabbed the wall for support. A footstep echoed from inside the attic, faster this time, heavier, as if someone startled, someone turning suddenly. Then another, coming toward the door. I took a step back. Then another. My heartbeat thrashed. "Daniel," I whispered, but my voice was too soft. Too afraid. The attic door creaked wider. Dust drifted down like falling ash. And for a moment, a terrible moment, I saw something at the top of the stairs. Not a face, not a body. The shape of a woman. Long hair, bare feet. Head slightly tilted, as if listening. I gasped and stumbled backward, hitting the bedroom door with my shoulder. The shadow froze. Then Margaret's voice behind me broke the silence. "Don't look at her." I turned. Margaret stood in the hallway wearing her robe, her hair down, her face pale but calm. Too calm. Her eyes did not leave the attic. "She knows you're here," Margaret whispered. "And she doesn't like new wives." My throat tightened. "Stop saying that. Do you think I'm lying?" Margaret snapped in a whisper. "Do you think I want this? I told Daniel not to move into this house. I told him she never left, but he wouldn't listen." The attic creaked again. The shadow shifted, like it recognized Margaret's voice. "You woke her," Margaret whispered. "When you opened the door that night." "I didn't." "You did," Margaret said. "You opened it, and she saw you." I covered my mouth, shaking. "I didn't want this. I didn't." "She doesn't care what you want," Margaret said. "She only cares about him." A cold wind slid down the hallway. The nightlight flickered. The attic door inched wider. Margaret grabbed my wrist. "Don't move," she whispered. "She comes closer when you move." I froze, breath locked in my chest. Margaret's fingers were cold, trembling. For the first time she looked afraid. Not controlling. Not cruel. Afraid. "She followed his first wife," Margaret said softly. "Everywhere, every room, every night, until she couldn't take it anymore." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "Why didn't Daniel tell me?" "Because he doesn't remember," Margaret whispered. She made him forget. The attic creaked again. Closer. Closer. Steps coming down the first stair. I broke. "Margaret, what do I do?" Her eyes glistened. "Leave," she whispered, "before she decides you're staying." A cold breath touched the back of my neck. Not wind, not air, breathing, a presence too close to deny. I screamed and ran. Not toward Daniel. Not toward help. Toward the front door. My hands shook violently as I unlocked it. I heard Margaret calling my name, telling me to wait, telling me not to go outside. But I ran barefoot into the cold night, down the steps, across the lawn. I didn't look back until the wind stilled. And when I did, Margaret stood at the doorway, one hand on the frame, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. Behind her, a second silhouette. A woman's silhouette, standing just behind her shoulder. Head tilted, hair long, bare feet touching nothing. Watching me. Daniel didn't understand why I wouldn't return. Why I cried on the phone. Why I begged him to sell the house. He said it was grief from work. Stress, emotion, imagination. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't go back. He moved out months later, closed the house permanently. For structural issues, he said. For safety. For mold. But I knew why. Margaret knew why. On the last day before he left, he found a photograph behind a drawer. A picture of his first wife. She looked like a woman who loved deeply. A woman who hurt deeply. A woman who clung to her life and to her husband with everything she had. On the back of the photo in fading ink were 4 words. "Don't let her in." Daniel never asked me what it meant. I never told him. Some truths protect more than they hurt. Sometimes loss is survival. Sometimes love is letting go. And sometimes peace is leaving a house that refuses to forget its ghosts.